But if you're someone that says, hey, it's the beginning of 2020, it's Q1, I keep looking at my website and it just doesn't represent quality of what I provide to my clients, now we're talking about how you can finally take care of that piece of marketing that's been on your to-do list for a long time.
You're listening to the Legal Mastermind Podcast with your hosts, Ryan Klein and Chase Williams, the go-to podcast for learning from the experts in the legal community about effective ways to grow and manage your law firm.
Welcome, everyone. It's a new decade. It's a new marketing plan in your lap that you haven't executed yet. Today, our hosts are me, Ryan Klein, and Chase Williams, and the guests are us as well. You know, believe it or not, we know quite a bit about marketing and web development, and that's what we'd like to bring to the table today, because you actually haven't heard us discuss kind of our background, our expertise yet on this podcast, and we felt like this would be a good opportunity to do so.
Exactly, and I think the main focus we're going to talk about today is building a law firm site for 2020 and beyond. And I think the topic really came to our plate when you said, I mean, Ryan, you just said you were looking at one of our clients and his traffic on mobile was 75%. So I think that's really starting off. That's what we'll sort of talk about is like a year to 2 years ago, we started building websites mobile first.
Yeah, that's correct. It's been quite some time since most of our clients have been over 50% traffic from mobile. I think if anyone remembers or was up to date with a little bit of the SEO trends over the past 5 years, we all remember a little thing called the mobile Eclipse, where Google kind of mentioned that they'd be emphasizing a little bit more on mobile and mobile-friendly search results. And then plenty of web developers kind of ran with it, sensationalized it. And before you know it, you have a nice little coin term called mobile Eclipse that didn't really pan out to anything. But if anything, it did illuminate the fact that more than half of law firm website visitors really are looking on their devices or their mobile devices.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many sites are even using, like they were calling it accelerated mobile pages, AKA AMP. I think a lot of like news sites are still using it, but I really haven't seen many service-based industry sites utilizing it now. We did it for a couple of our clients when we test everything, but I don't think any of our clients were using AMP for anymore.
No, I don't see AMP too much, to be honest. And not to say that isn't a good thing to take advantage of. It's one of those things where there are a million things you can do SEO and digital marketing-wise every single day, and it's just hard to kind of keep up with doing every single thing. I could also say it's maybe falls in line a little bit with what we practice internally and kind of do with marketing campaigns for our legal clients, the 80-20 rule, where we don't know necessarily if the AMP pages fall into that 20% of the work to be done that does 80% of the impact. Yeah, I don't see it too often. I never see it for legal. I only occasionally see it for like news sources and blogs, typically like dedicated blogs.
Speaking of amps, what's your favorite guitar amp, Ryan?
My favorite guitar amp, I love any Marshall combo. Or no, I like Fender combo amps, Marshall combo amps. And I know that we used to be on tour, the Ampeg. What was it, a 10 by 8 by 8? I forget what the dimensions were. I know yours is orange head, orange cab.
Yeah, I love orange.
Wow. Trying to trip me up, get me sidetracked?
Yeah. Just trying to show that, we're real people. We're not just focusing on legal marketing all day, every day, 24 hours a day.
Well, we're not working on it, but we're certainly thinking about it. So going back to, we're talking about the websites. We know that mobile first has definitely been a thing for the past at least 3 or 4 years. And yeah, today we want to talk about websites, and it is much easier nowadays to have a really good looking, respectable, professional website. Whether you do it, we'll go over each option nowadays. If you have a beautiful website, we're going to talk about best practices, so you should still stick around. But if you're someone that says, hey, it's the beginning of 2020, it's Q1, it's the first week of January, I keep looking at my website and it just doesn't represent the quality of what I provide to my clients, now we're talking about how you can finally take care of that piece of marketing that's been on your to-do list for a long time.
I think one of the biggest questions we get is, I'm worried to change my site because I think it's going to affect my SEO rankings. Mm-hmm. And this is like your area of expertise, Ryan. So I'll ask you a question. Hey, I'm worried my SEO rankings are going to be affected when I change my site. What do you think?
I didn't see that coming. No, it's an excellent question. I do get it quite a bit, and I do like answering it. So when you rebuild your website, you're doing it. You want to kind of consider it from an aesthetic standpoint. It's like, I don't know, I'm doing an analogy with like a person getting a makeover. So it's like, you go and you're getting dolled up for the prom. You're still the same person, really, but all you really have is just an extra layer of kind of beautification, of aesthetic. So what you're trying to do is really, you're keeping the heart and soul of what you have, but you're really just kind of doing an overhaul of what's on the surface. So what I mean by that is, if you really don't want to get dinged completely by Google, which, could easily happen, it's true, and that's why there's reservations, definitely keep in mind that you want to keep all the content as close as possible to the original. You really, really don't want to touch the URL structure. You don't want to change like the site architecture too much, unless it just wasn't that ideal in the first place. And then, when you're rebuilding it and you're adding new images and your new overlays and everything, just want to make sure that you're following the best practices. The images aren't huge. You're not changing the code dramatically. You're not adding a million new plugins that you didn't have before. You're not moving to a different server that's slower. There's just some things you want to keep in mind. But if you're working with a web developer that's not only talented at building a new website, but also has kind of those SEO best practices in mind too, it's not really as daunting as you'd think it would be.
I think the main takeaway is, from a consumer standpoint, when you launch a new website, it's, like you said, it's like a makeover. It's going to look totally new to them. But on the back end, we want to do everything we can to tell Google, hey, it's actually the same site. We just got a makeover.
Exactly. And there are ways of doing that. So I think that if you're looking for a developer or you're looking for a web design company, and especially nowadays, I would ask questions like what you just asked. And of course, how conscientious are you of the SEO implications of doing this redesign? So Chase, question for you then. On average, what are you seeing when people come to you and they need a new website? How outdated is their website typically? And are there any things that stand out to you where you're like, okay, this isn't just an update, it's time to do a complete overhaul?
I mean, it's getting better and better, but up until maybe 2 or 3 years ago, people had sites that were built in ancient languages. Things were broken. They were easily hacked. But I think nowadays it's getting better and better, and people are sort of realizing like, hey, I actually do need a makeover. I think some of our most successful clients and the people that we work with, they usually make over their site maybe like once every 2 to 3 years, just because their business changes or their branding's changed, the people they're going after, that whole process has evolved. But it really comes down to, I think a lot of it comes down to technology. Like once someone, and like the most popular platform obviously right now is WordPress. So once someone's on WordPress, I think it's a little bit easier to make smaller updates. And I think people are more nervous when they're transferring off of like a FindLaw website to WordPress. I think that's where the gap comes in, and people see real change, because with WordPress, you're really able to manipulate a site however you like. And I always tell, our clients, we're not really reinventing the wheel. We're like Frankensteining some of the best things and aspects of different websites together. So it's like, hey, this menu on Apple.com is amazing, but I really love like how the blocks flow on the Tesla website. So we're able to create these really stunning websites. And I think that the biggest transition is not just like a lead form. I think people are more focusing more on like presenting like a law firm as a brand, and sometimes even like a luxury brand, where it's really showing who the lawyer is, what they're all about. And it's not just like, hey, we do a free consultation. It's like, here's my experience. These are the cases I've won. This is my team. And even integrating like beautiful videos, that's something that I'm seeing a huge trend in that as well, where it's really, you're trying to do everything you can to separate yourself from the competition.
I agree. I actually really like the direction that websites are kind of going in the past couple of years. And I see other people doing this, and I see other people in the industry trying to encourage this when they're doing new website builds. But yeah, even more recently, everything's kind of like a call to action and trying to be conversion oriented. It's trying to just really push people along to just contacting. So you go to like a law firm's website, really in the past 5 years up until maybe the past couple years, and it's just like a ton of text, and they're trying to do it for SEO. They're stuffing in keywords or have contact forms everywhere. They have chat features, which we'll get into more features and functionality later. But now it's like you're saying, it's more like a branding play. It's more like an experience. It's more trying to relate to the brand and the experience more so than it's just another lawyer that can do what everyone else does, and you're just trying to push them along to contact you before they even know what you're all about, and if you can actually are a good fit to retain them for legal services.
And I think one of the easiest tests you can do is take your direct competitor, take their logo and put it on your website. And if if it makes the website still make sense, it's probably not a good website. So you want your website to represent you, and for people, your name doesn't have to even be there, but people would go to your website and say, "Oh, this is Ryan Klein Law Firm's website. I know it. I don't even see the logo. I don't even see his picture. I just know because this is his branding. This is how he talks. These are his colors." But I think that's the best test to really, and a good question to ask yourself really is, if I took my logo off my website and put it on another website, could somebody tell the difference?
I feel like that's a throwback to another conversation we had.
It is.
That's a good one though too. And then being that we're in the same vein of doing that, I'm not sure if it was the same guy. I'm not sure if you were referring to Mike Jones, but I know we talked to Mike Jones, and he does a lot of storyboarding and some storytelling on websites. And I really like the idea of websites now kind of guiding people along a kind of a journey, as opposed to just, a blunt call to action and a opportunity to contact you. I think it is important for websites to kind of guide someone along on a journey a little bit more, and some of the generic stuff. I think it gives us a chance to be a little bit more creative with how the law firm or the guide to be able to help the hero or the visitor with their legal issue.
So let's talk about features and integrations. I think that's something. Was that where you're going with it? I
was actually going to go into options first. If you're like, okay, I'm not sure where to go. Can I do it myself? Can I use what you see is what you get, like a Wix or a Squarespace or Shopify? No one's going to use Shopify. Okay, so backtrack. But anyway, there are more options now than there ever been before as well to build a website. So let's talk about some of those options. And then typically, let's just give a price range for what that would look like.
Yeah. I mean, I can comment on like this, the solo practitioner who really just wants that brand presence online. I think like Wix and Squarespace is a great option for them. I think it's really coming to a situation where it's like they're really word of mouth based on referrals, and someone's going to look for them online and they're not finding them, and they just need some sort of brand presence. I think that's a good opportunity to utilize a platform like Wix and Squarespace because the pricing is just so cheap. And if that specific lawyer doesn't see the value in an online presence, it's like a no-brainer just to go ahead and put up a simple Wix or Squarespace landing page.
It depends where you're at with your practice. If you're just starting off, if you're actually at the later part and you're probably not going to practice that much more, I think those are bookends, then it might even be appropriate. It depends on how you're going about your marketing mix. Some people truly just want a online business card, if you will, and don't really want to pursue any sort of marketing, but they just want to have the ability for people to learn a little bit about them, the cases they've handled, and some of their background. So I definitely think that it just varies where you're at with, I guess, the trajectory of your law firm or where you're at in your career. It would have a little bit to do with what your initial options or your thoughts on an option would be.
I mean, our 100% recommendation for someone who's a little bit further along, needs a wider brand presence, wants to integrate a ton of different options, automations, triggers, like WordPress is going to be the 100% recommendation right now, at least.
Sure. So you definitely, your wheelhouse is automation, setting up different triggers, like you're saying, and some of the different functionalities and plugins. So what are the ones that you have experienced in probably like the past year or two setting up? What does that typically look like?
I mean, I love the fact that we utilize Zapier for a bunch of different clients. And for those not familiar with Zapier, is basically once you gather data from your website, you're able to distribute it to multiple places. So let's say you're doing intake, you get a lead right away. A text message could go to your phone. At the same time, it goes into your CRM. At the same time, your paralegal or your assistant or somebody gets a email. And then, the triggers are really unlimited. So that's just one specific example. At the same time, let's say you're doing a lead form on your website. You gather someone's email address. You could follow up with an automated email. You can push it to something like MailChimp. You could put them into a custom audience to send specific advertisements to them if that's legal and what you are practicing. And that's just really the tip of the iceberg. I know we have some zaps that are, I think, we have like 1,000 zaps or something ridiculous on our account. They keep adding new integrations all the time. So if there's multiple pieces of software that you work with, you can pretty much sync everything using Zapier, which is really convenient. You don't have to hire a developer. If you have someone that's tech savvy in your office, you could probably figure it out. Or all marketing companies, even if they don't have a development team, should know how to utilize the software.
And we love that automation, the integrations. And I think that I know that Squarespace and Wix and some of those other builders are much more sophisticated than they were 3 or 5 years ago. But I still feel like having a complete control, which is a WordPress, which is going to a web development company or an individual freelance developer, that's going to remove any doubt that you'll be able to do what you want to do for the full breadth of your marketing. I get like a little concerned with Squarespace. They really do have great templates and websites nowadays. And I'm going to refer just Squarespace specifically because I see the most law firms on Squarespace. But I'm always a little bit concerned with really all the capabilities. Like, is it 100% going to integrate with every single thing I want, like WordPress would? Am I going to be able to have control of all the SEO elements that I really want to configure? There's some things that happen with those builders, and they try their best to be able to accommodate for everything, but they're never going to have the full functionality that you want, like something like WordPress.
So when you say SEO configurations, like your robots.txt, your sitemaps, anything else that users should be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, it should seem straightforward that like titles and descriptions should be able to be adjusted anywhere, but there are some things that we do with like site speed sometimes. You like browser caching and image caching. Schema mark, it's another thing. They might have a finite amount of options. They might have a schema markup for just a page or just a blog or just a location. But if you have a WordPress and you have additional ones, you might want to do it for attorney. There is a schema or structured data category for attorney. There is it for FAQ. There is for how to. There is for specific articles. And the amount of categories that are existing for structured data is expanding. Builders don't typically keep up with that. They're kind of focused elsewhere. So we're talking about builders. I mean, I know that a couple ones that we can rely on. I just keep on saying Squarespace. The only reason I say that is because we don't get kickback. We're not partnered with them. But when I've worked with other people and we've taken over websites and then rebuilt them on WordPress, when we've gone and seen someone on like a GoDaddy builder, it's typically nothing that impressive. Wix is nothing that crazy. I can't really think of too many others, but there are. But Squarespace tends to be the one where the client will come to us and say, I definitely want to build it on WordPress for these reasons that we're discussing, but I'd like the design of my Squarespace. So can we rebuild it as close to that original design? And I say, yeah, because it's a good design. Moving on. If you don't want to do a builder and you go and you want to work with the developer and then you have a budget, what are some options? If you're like, I literally right now, I just have $1,500 for a website, what would you recommend, Chase?
You probably might be able to get something from a new company that's just starting out, that's trying to make a name for themselves. They've got, somewhat of a portfolio and they're trying to build out the portfolio. Cause I know it's at one point in time, we were selling websites for that. And it was at the time where we're trying to offer, traditionally we were like a marketing company. So we were trying to offer web design. And so we wanted to really create stunning websites that were going to set our clients apart from others. And if we saw a good opportunity where it's like, hey, we can build this website in this huge market and really blow away anything else that's out there that's their direct competition, it's a good opportunity. So I think it's finding that opportunity in like someone who's hungry and maybe a newer, smaller company. I think that's really the only way you're going to get a website for around $1,500. And then like a more established agency, I mean, some of the agency I've spoken to, it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I mean, it really just depends on knowing what you want, being able to shop around. And I think asking the right questions is important too. So it's like, asking them, hey, do you have developers in-house? Do you use templates? I think that's a big question. And if you're looking to spend $1,500 on a website, you're probably going to be the developer's probably going to be using a template just for time, because everything's broken down and built by time. So even if they're not telling you that, that's how internally a web design firm is billing you. So there's maybe a lead developer on the account that they're having to pay a really high dollar amount to, and then there's maybe a graphic designer that's more of like a mid-level, and maybe there's like a someone who's basically going to just use framework that's really low level that is doing some of the more easy coding, so it's going to bring that price down. But they're going to figure out a blended rate, and that's really where that pricing comes into play. So if you're dealing with a huge firm, and I think in the legal industry, the most I've seen websites go for maybe like 20 to 30,000. Have you seen anything above that?
No, because I think the functionality and then just what really encompasses what a law firm website needs. The only time I could see it going above that is if like they're talking about additional things that aren't exactly web development that go towards web development. For example, they're going to do a video shoot that's going to go on the website. They're going to do a photo shoot that goes on the website. They're doing custom animations. They're doing custom graphics. Like the only time I see it going up to an upwards of 30, 40, 50 is if they're doing like supplementing some of the aspects of the website that aren't even like web design. And yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, a couple other things I can think of as far as maybe adjustments for price, or trying to get into maybe a smaller budget, which we would consider 15, just to give a little bit of insight about what you expect for different tiers of website. Is that, it's going to depend also on like how big the website is, how many pages it's going to be. So, questions you ask are like, I only need, or you think you only need, but sometimes as the website kind of evolves, because websites always evolve, you might need additional pages. So you might go into and saying, well, why is this, if I only got 15, but all I need is a home and a contact. It's like, no, you're going to need practice areas, and you're going to need a blog set up, or be able to support your blogging once that starts up. Maybe other ways you can kind of mitigate the price would be, saying that you're going to supply your own content in its entirety. I mean, those are kind of scenarios that we don't typically deal with, I suppose, just because sometimes when a lawyer wants to provide some of the work to cut down on costs, that means that you're inserting yourself into a timeline and the project timeline that you shouldn't really have any business technically dictating, if that makes sense. So last thing you want is like a web development company waiting on you to push along their timeline because you said you were going to take over something. So sometimes a web development company may not even enter that kind of contract or arrangement with you because of that.
Yep.
If you ever thought about that.
Touching on what you just said, something that's really important is making sure that the firm you're going to work with has a process. So and has a specific timeline set up. It's not just like, all right, I'm signing a contract and I'm going to get a website in 2 or 3 months. And then as a consumer, you're checking in 2 months down the road and there's no updates, and they're just say, hey, we're working on it. So I think one thing we always make sure to do is keep people updated to the process. So it's like, hey, here are your wireframes or your mock-ups. Does this align with your brand? This is what we think would work best for the menu. This is the structure. This is how a contact page, we think the contact page should look. This is how your content page should look. This is how your homepage should look. Like making sure that there's some sort of process behind this really high value piece of this high value contract you just signed and purchased.
I'd say if there was one takeaway you could have from like this whole podcast, maybe that's too long didn't listen or read, and which I'll summarize also in the description, is I do think, based off of our experience ourselves with other lawyers hearing their stories and other agencies, is if when you're vetting or choosing between different agencies, or you're kind of narrowing down between like a freelancer or an agency, or everything in between, it's definitely them establishing the timeline and it seeming like they're extremely organized and they have a process, exactly like you said, because there are too many times where people hire a web development company and they don't, it's a month and it's 2 months, and then you're going back and forth, and then every single time is an update for something small like an image or the menu or the footer, and it takes like another week for an update. That's how websites go from being. Websites should take 2 to 3 months. I think no matter what size they are, that seems like a pretty typical range. Websites can end up, if they're not organized and there's no communication or correspondence, or things aren't moving along, that's how websites end up taking 6 to 12 months, or they just never complete at all.
And this is specifically for a law firm. There's different types of websites that will take much longer or maybe even quicker. So if someone wanted a landing page, that's not going to take 2 to 3 months, but it's I think you're right on par for the average law firm creating a website for like a medium to small size practice. It's 2 to 3 months.
That's what our experience is. And if you work with, like, if you go on Upwork and you look for a web developer, I'm sure that you can find someone either domestically or you can find them internationally.
Yep.
And
so I mean that's a good option too. I mean for those that don't know what Upwork is, you're hiring individuals versus companies to work on projects for you.
The only thing with doing a freelancer, I'm sure a lot of them are talented, but that timeline is going to be, and communication might be kind of tricky, just because a website is a front end, like everything you see in the front end, the aesthetic, images, all that, and then it's the back end, all the code and what's going on behind the scenes. And it's not super common for someone to be very proficient in both. I mean, it can be, but it's typically not how it is. That's why you hear so much about like front end and back end development. So you're just dealing with someone that's just trying to take care of everything. Whereas if you work with a team, that someone's simultaneously working on the front end, someone's working on the back end, they're communicating. And that's how, without a doubt, there's no comparison on that project moving along quicker than someone doing it by themselves. So if time is a value and you want that thing turned around in relatively reasonable amount of time, like that 2 to 3 month mark, you just don't really see it happen with a freelancer, even though it's cheaper. You don't see it happen as often unless they just don't have anything going on. And then you'd be concerned if they don't have anything going on. I think that as far as like vetting it, the biggest thing is going to be, I mean, of course you want to look at their portfolio. If there's anything that's standing out, you can see the quality of work. It's very apparent. It's not, if it's in line with what you think is a nice website, that's going to be obvious. So I think, their portfolio, their previous work is going to be a pretty obvious point to establish if they're a good partner. And then if they seem very, very organized about their timeline and their process, that's important. And then of course the cost. I think those are some of the main things. It might seem obvious, but I think it's how you kind of approach it once you start speaking to several people, because you should, especially for this, you should never go to the first person. I would probably talk to like a few different people.
Shop around. I think the last thing to talk about really is integrations you want to make sure are live on your website before you launch. One of them that's a must is like Google Tag Manager. So it makes adding pixels, adding tracking, adding conversion tracking way easier via Google Tag Manager. That's something that is a one-time code injection. So I think Google Tag Manager, obviously you want to have Google Analytics. If you're allowed to, your Facebook remarketing pixels, setting up your Facebook conversion pixel, setting up your other conversion pixels on Google for both paid and organic. If there's not any like UTM tags set up, defining those so you're able to track where your traffic's actually coming from. And then if the tracking's set up correctly, you're able to find out where the leads are coming from. So if you're investing a ton of money in SEO, you want to make sure you're able to attribute those leads to SEO. Call tracking is huge. That's super easy to implement as well. We use a company called CallRail SEO, making sure that your sitemap submitted to the Search Console, Google Webmaster Tools.
Yeah, I don't know if any of the listeners have ever gone to our website, marketmymarket.com, and read some of our blogs or articles. We do a lot of surveys. A lot of them are kind of like consumer behavior articles. So we've asked questions like, how do you feel about chat popping up on a website? And a lot of lawyers have been solicited, or they're using, or they're familiar with Engage and maybe some other chats like Apex. But people have said in previous surveys that they don't really mind chats really popping up. I know the Engage one takes over the whole screen, I guess you could almost say. And it seems that people don't really mind it as long as there's a chance for them to X out of it. So people do enjoy the opportunity to be able to chat, depending on what their situation is in the practice area. So definitely clear way for them to do a chat, clear way for them to submit a contact form, clear way for them to give you a call. So, all those ways, the methods of contact are very important. And then one other key, takeaway from a survey that we had too is we asked the question, is it worse for a lawyer to have no website or a bad website? And it's actually worse to have a bad website than no website at all. So just keep that in mind moving forward. And I know bad is, subjective, of course, but it's just, important to keep that in mind, that when people are used to seeing more and more modern websites and they're kind of getting acclimated with a certain standard that happens from just browsing and being online, it's going to be a little bit of not a shock, but it's going to be obvious if they go to a website that's outdated. It's going to kind of lower their perception of the lawyer, and then in turn, it's going to lower the perception of the quality of services. That's just how the psychology of this works. All right. If Chase, thanks for being on. If anyone wants to reach out and speak with you, how can they get in contact with you?
Oh, thanks so much. My direct email is chase@marketmymarket.com. What about you, Ryan? How can people reach out to you?
It's funny because it's Ryan@marketmymarket.com.
Excellent. And then, of course, if you're interested in listening to additional episodes of the podcast, you can go to legalmastermindpodcast.com.
Thanks for listening to the Legal Mastermind podcast. If you're interested in working with Ryan and Chase, please email mastermind@marketmymarket.com. Make sure to join the free mastermind group for growing and managing your firm at lawfirmmastermind.com. Ryan Klein and Chase Williams are the managing partners at Market My Market, one of the top legal marketing companies in the United States.